Hello, my friends. This is Bard's Backlog, the ever-growing catalog of video games inducted into the Hall of Games. Josh and I are the gatekeepers and subsequent executioners of any video game candidate, including today's. Write us, email us at askvgb@gmail.com. Send us some suggestions, maybe for topics or questions you have or recommendations. We would love to hear from you. You can support the podcast by giving our social media posts a like, following us on Twitter or Instagram or wherever, on your podcast service of choice. We're on Spotify. And by dropping us a review on Apple Podcasts. We accept all honest reviews as long as they are 5 stars. And honestly, if you're not giving us 5 stars, you have better things to be doing.
Indeed.
Last time we talked about Dark Souls, specifically remastered, although I don't think we got into too much of the differences between the original game and the remastered game for the Switch. But we did get into Dark Souls, and it was one heck of a journey. I think our longest podcast to date, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yes. And quite honestly, we could have kept going. Like Dark Souls, I feel like that that game, and at least for sure the series as a whole, could be a whole dedicated podcast in and of itself. Like you could have 200 episodes, just talking about all the different characters and stuff. So like we did our best to condense. But it was still a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like I texted you after the podcast. I was like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said this. There was so much more to talk about. Those games are thick. There's so much to them. There's so much depth. Beautiful games.
Thick with 2 C's.
And yes, exactly. Go listen to that podcast. See what our decision was, whether Dark Souls entered into the Hall of Games. And then, Josh, let me ask you, what is the status of the Red Pixel podcast? Are you and Karina able to upload pretty regularly here?
Yeah, so I know I mentioned last time, for those of you who listen, that I was going to be kicking it back up what was now 2 weeks ago, and that didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen was because Karina and I were about to go on a vacation, for one. And then 2, it was just a dead week of news, and I just thought, you know what? By the time we get out of South Carolina, where we were, by the time we get back to our home and we get resettled, and by the time it's the next Friday that we're going to be uploading, E3 will have happened. We'll have a ton of stuff to react to and break down.
Yeah.
And I just thought it didn't make a whole lot of sense to jump into it and then take a week off and then have the E3 coverage. So I figured like E3 can just be our big coming back, grand awakening, whatever you want to call it. So that's the idea we're going to be recording this week. So that's the goal for it. And the other thing I want to mention as far as both Red Pixel and Bard's Backlog is concerned is that I'm planning on getting the episodes going forward up on YouTube as well. Currently they are not, and I'm going to be working with some, background imaging and stuff, trying to figure out how that's all going to work and the best way to handle that. The reason that I wasn't uploading to YouTube for the last year or so has been because of our internet situation. But now that Karina and I have moved and we have our own dedicated internet, there's no reason not to. And I think we can get a lot of stuff done. I'm also kicking around the idea of kind of just filling out that YouTube channel with more original content. We'll see what happens. But at the very least, I'm going to start to get these podcast episodes up there as well. And I might take the ones that we've done in the past. We're on episode 21 now, so the previous 20, and try and get them on there in some capacity. We'll see. But for sure, going forward, I'm going to try and get that to be a thing. Because we're on all the podcast services, but YouTube is just a great way for people to discover. And so I want to certainly utilize that. And so that's kind of the plan for both Red Pixel and Bard's Backlog. But yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And, YouTube, too, is just a whole other beast. I mean, video editing is something in and of itself. So it's a crazy beast for sure. Yeah,
and that's been another thing, actually, is I don't have access to the Adobe suite of products anymore. Mm-hmm. So I've been actually this last week kind of looking at alternatives, and I think I've struck on a pretty good one. So I'm excited to get working on that.
Yeah, there you go. And Josh, how is settling into the new place? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Tell
Oh,
us.
I love it. It's so awesome. It's
Good.
a really nice.
Good.
The apartment we moved into is like actually literally brand new. Like it just got finished being built last year in the fall, and so it's like, and it, you can tell, like, smells brand new and everything, and so like that's awesome. Obviously, because of that though, there's like some kinks that need to be worked out, and the property management company kind of has some things that they're trying to figure out too. So there's been a little bit of a transition, but it's a ton of fun. We've got a lot of space. It's a 2-bed, 2-bath, which is a little bit too big for us, to be honest, but we can afford it, and it's in a really nice location close to downtown. And yeah, we're mostly moved in. We got a few boxes in the office still, just because we got rid of one of our junk bookshelves. So we got to get another bookshelf because I have gobs and gobs of books, and got to make sure.
Dude, there's something about a real book, though. I know you and I have talked about that, but there's something about holding the pages in your hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. And Amazon scared me. They scared me, man. Earlier this year, they started censoring stuff, and I'm like, you can't do that. You can't. Like, and so like I've switched to physical. Like I got a tablet, and I think it was this last Christmas. Maybe it was a little bit before then, but I got this brand new tablet, and I was, raring to go on that. I was excited about it, and I had gotten some books, and then Amazon, lo and behold, censors a couple of things, and that really like made like my heart drop a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
I literally just read Fahrenheit 451 last semester, and it's literally censorship is what that whole book is about. Like they're burning books, and that's like their way of keeping the people from being informed and whatnot. And so I got a lump in my throat, and I was like, I gotta get some nice hard copies. And so I went on a book spree. Actually, Karina could tell you, like March and April, I think I bought like 15 books, and I haven't read most of them. I've been working through them slowly but surely, but like I got the bug,
course. Yeah.
So I need a bookshelf for all these books.
I had an idea when I was thinking about like my dream house and having kids and everything. I was like, what I should do is like put easily readable books on the lowest shelf, and then the next level of reading on the next shelf, and then the hardest level of reading, maybe the really abstract thoughts, the really in-depth allegories, maybe things like, I don't even know, like
maps of meaning.
I guess like like the laws of power, maps of meaning, things like that. Robert Greene, Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker. Put those on the top shelf, right? And so when a kid looks up, they literally are aiming for what's higher. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Things like that. So, yeah, I don't know, just kind of a quirky idea. But I would love for my children to have access to those books in the physical copy, just so no one can take them away.
Yeah,
Jeff Bezos is planning on taking a rocket ship ride. Maybe he's up there on his smartphone censoring books while he's doing it. I don't know. He seems like a guy who multitasks. But anyway, so yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. So Josh, the games we've been playing.
Yes.
I know there's been little time that we have had. I mean, you and your move, although it is summertime, and I'm enjoying an extra amount of time just because school is out, etc. I've been working like mad, but I have had some free time here and there. And I've been playing just one other game other than today's feature, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But tell me more, because you have a little bit longer list than I do.
Yes.
Tell me about the games you've been playing.
Yeah, so school got out May 28th. I think I finished working. And so the first week of June, I dove into some games. I finished up Dark Souls for that podcast, and I caught the bug. So I just decided, you know what? I was at a high. I had finished a From Software game. I was like, I'm going to finish the rest. So I jumped into Dark Souls 2, beat it that week, and then the next week I beat Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. And so I have just been like flying through these games, and they have been such a trip. Oh my goodness, I could spend hours just talking about each one. Right now I'm playing Sekiro, so that's the pretty much the only game other than our pick for this week that I've been diving into, and I am so glad that I played the other ones getting to Sekiro. Sekiro is the hardest game I have ever played, bar none. And I've played some hard retro games, the original Castlevania. Blood, sweat, and tears, like pushed through that thing.
Yep.
Some of the old Mega Man games. You could of course look at a lot of retro games and say that they're difficult, but like even like more modern ones, I'm trying to think of one that really compares to Sekiro, and nothing really comes to mind. This game requires a level of skill and precision that, quite honestly, just people aren't going to be able to attain. It's not like Dark Souls at all. Oh, it is. It's from the same group, and of course there's some similarities, but it has like really focused in on the skill side of things. And if you're not skilled, you're done. Like, and that was my first experience when I got the game in 2019. It felt like I was banging my head against a wall, and I was so mad. It was like, I could feel the ship sinking, and I had a little bucket, and I was trying to get water out. But there was a hole in the bottom of the ship. Like, it was a nightmare. And Karina and I had just gotten married, and she could tell you, like, I was mad trying to play through Sekiro. I was like, wouldn't talk to her, just like red in the face, like and it's a very sweaty game. So like my palms get very sweaty playing it. So even now I have to take a break. But like back then, and I jumped into it without having the run up that I've had with the other Souls games. So that has been a huge benefit. Like I blew right past the guy that I got stuck on last time. And I remember I died to him like 30 or 40 times before I just, threw my controller down and said, screw this game. And this time I beat him on like my third try. Like, it still took me a couple times, but I am definitely benefiting from the other games in the From Software suite. But Sekiro, man, it is by far the hardest game I've ever played, and it is so rewarding when it clicks. And the funny thing about it too is that you have to like get it to click every time. It's like warming up for a dance routine. And if you don't do the warm up, if you don't allow yourself to kind of like fall a couple times here or there, you're not going to be able to execute perfectly. And that happens every time you turn it on. It's like, okay, you got to warm back up to this. There's a cadence to it. There's a timing to it. And if you are not patient, if you get a little flustered in that warm up time, the whole dance routine is going to fall apart. So like each time it's a focus. You got to be paying close attention. You can't be, there's no funny business. Don't be trying to watch something else while you're doing it. Don't be like, imbibing something that's going to alter your state of mind or anything. Like, you have to be like honed and paying attention. And when you get into that rhythm though, it's a ton of fun. And I've gotten much further than I had before, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm looking forward to the end. I know, like right now, I'm at a high because I've gotten past a couple of like big name bosses, and I'm like, yeah, like I can do this now.
Yeah.
And who knows? It's a From Software game, so who knows what's around the corner and what's going to challenge me next. But been having a ton of fun with that. Yeah. And like I said, I could jump into every single Dark Souls game. Man, okay, let me do this. I'll give you just like a quick impression of each one, just like one sentence
Go ahead.
of each.
Yeah, please do.
So Dark Souls, the first one, I think it's still my favorite Souls game. Okay. Because its world. Its world is just very distinct from the other ones are a lot more linear. I was very surprised. Like you still got those shortcuts within areas, but you don't have like a moment where you walk through a door in Firelink Shrine and then you show up in Blighttown in the Valley of the Drakes and you're like, whoa, that's cool. I didn't realize these are connected in that way. Like that doesn't happen very much in the other ones. So Dark Souls I still say is my favorite. 2 is such an interesting game. It takes bits and pieces of Dark Souls that some people love and some people hate, and it capitalizes on it. So if you don't like those bits and pieces, you're going to hate the game. But if you love those parts of Dark Souls, it's going to be your favorite Dark Souls game. So
either way, it's going to be amplified, right?
Right, in one way or the other. So Dark Souls 2, very divisive, ton of fun. Was able to beat that. That one I used the guide for, and I'm going to be shamelessly saying, like, I pretty much followed the guide every step of the way. Dark Souls 3 has some influence from Bloodborne in there. It's got that Dark Souls flair. I'd say it's the most focused of the three. It's pretty epic, and they've got a lot of really great boss fights. But I think just in the mix of everything else, it kind of it disappeared on my radar. Like, I don't want to say it's forgettable, but between all four of the games that I've been playing, it definitely was the one that was kind of like, oh yeah, this one's kind of like everything else. You know, it didn't necessarily make its own identity. That being said, it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, I was thinking after we chatted about Dark Souls last time, just to interject quickly, that the only thing that was really missing from Dark Souls was more story. And I don't mean necessarily filling in holes in the lore, because I do love the speculation.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, like, more background on each of the characters.
Sure.
Like that epic cutscene that was at the beginning proved to me as the player that you can make some hardcore awesome animation for the background scene that you're setting for this whole story.
Oh yeah.
And if you could have done that for several of the big bosses, I'm thinking like the cutscene for Ornstein and Smaug is fantastic, right? And then the middle in between when one absorbs the other's powers is also epic. But if you could have had like maybe a 30 to 45 second, maybe a minute and a half or so cutscene for each of the major bosses, depicting their backgrounds, their feelings, the way they got wrapped into doing this chore, etc. That would have made the game 3 times more rich.
Yeah.
But yeah, I when you told me you played through all of the Souls games and have beaten them all since our last podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the difference. You know, it's like when Goku sees I'm gonna mess up his name, Vegeta or whatever.
Vegeta.
You know, and like for the first time, you know, and the power disparity is so massive.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how I feel being the casual half of this podcast.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely benefiting from like one building into the other. You know, it's a snowballing, cascading effect for sure.
Yeah.
And 2 is the hardest of the Dark Souls games. And that's why, but I used a guide, so it was fine. And I had a dex build, so that was a ton of fun. 3 is surprisingly, like, it's got a lot of like we talk about the artificial difficulty, you know, where like it just kind of sucker punches you, like you chase an enemy and then 2 others ambush you, like haha, like that happens a lot in Dark Souls 3, and so you'll die a lot in a lot of like dumb ways, but a lot of the times, like that one I felt like was kind of the most trolling of the 3, but at the same time it also is pretty honed in. 2 is definitely the alien, like it's set in a totally different realm. It's like 100 thousands of years after the first game, whereas 3, it feels like I guess you haven't had this experience necessarily, Jared, but if you ever play a Legend of Zelda game after like a previous one, it has like this familiarity to it, you know? Like you've got Link and Zelda, and then there's like areas and locales that are like, oh, this is like the Kakariko village, like this is their iteration of that, and here's the Gorons again, and like these are all like, you know, it feels like, you know, a poem and a different stanza, but it's all the same poem, and they're kind of rhyming. So Dark Souls 3 kind of has that feel with the first one, where I was getting like you run across, it's not Sigmire of Katarina, it's a different guy, but it's a Katarina guy. It's an onion head dude.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And there's like a whole little quest with him. And you run into Firelink's Shrine, and there's a moment actually where you go, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but like you go and revisit Anor Londo, Jared, from Dark Souls, and like you walk up, and it's that giant stairway up to the doors where Ornstein and Smaug are. And if you go to the left, you can actually find the corpse of the giant blacksmith. And he's like dead over there, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you're like struck with all this, especially after having played through them. I was like, oh my goodness, this feels epic. So like it has a lot of that going for it for sure. But out of like the locales and everything, just 3 kind of blended into the background a little bit. And then last thing, I know. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say maybe they overcorrected because 2 was so divisive. Right. You know what I mean? Maybe they But anyway, keep
100%.
Going.
Yeah, and then I was also going to say they're definitely influenced by Bloodborne. Bloodborne is such an interesting game. It's so fast compared to the Dark Souls games, but it's visceral because of that, and it's just like I would say it's a little bit more fun, to be honest, like just pure fun.
Sure.
So it's actually a better entry point than any of the Dark Souls games to From Software, and certainly better than Sekiro, because it's easier. I would say it's actually the easiest, I'd say, of all their games, which it doesn't strike you as being that, especially at the start of the game, because they have that punishing flair, and you have to kind of get used to it. But I breezed through it because I had been, it's the cascading effect. I was doing pretty well at the other one, so I kind of just continued on with that. But it is such a good game. Like, it's easily accessible. It's a ton of fun. The lore is so interesting and crazy. It deals with like this idea of like werewolves and beasts and like humans turning into beasts. But then at the same time, right underneath that is this bizarre layer of H.P. Lovecraft and like celestial alien entities with giant tentacles and like
Cthulhu.
Insanity. Like there's this counter. Instead of like humanity, you have what's called insight. And the more insight you have, the more of basically the more knowledge of the world you have, and the more your mind is open to what they call like higher planes of experience. And so you actually, with higher insight, you can actually see some of these celestial beings, and they're like terrifying and disgusting. And but like it's very interesting the way they play with that. Like the more insight, the more knowledge you have, the higher you're actually able to achieve that level of intellect. The more of the world you actually realize is horrifying. And then they have enemies too that will actually like it's called what's the meter called? They inflict you with frenzy. And essentially what frenzy is you're looking at this creature and you literally, your mind, because it's limited, cannot comprehend what that creature is. And so you basically go mad. So if your frenzy meter fills up, it does like what bleed does in Dark Souls, where like will take away a chunk of your life if it fills up. So like in game, it doesn't necessarily have a big effect, but like it is such an interesting concept that like you literally cannot like process what's in front of you, and so you're like basically going crazy. And so like they play it with like insanity and madness, and because of that, the world is just so interesting and cool, and they do a lot of cool stuff with it. And then at the same time, it's a very accessible From Software game. So had a ton of fun with that. I was so mad, Jared, because both Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, I got to the second to last boss the first time I played through it, and I quit. And and sure enough, playing through it again.
But you didn't realize it at the time?
No, I didn't. And so yeah, like sure enough, playing through it again, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you serious?" Like I was right there. But yeah, so it's been a ton of fun. It's been a journey, man. I've been on a journey, and I'm looking forward to wrapping it up with Sekiro. So. Sorry, I said one sentence. That was not one sentence.
No, you're good. I'm looking forward to playing all of those, and I will get to them eventually. I might have to do some wheeling and dealing, get a PlayStation somehow, some way, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. What was I going to ask you? I can't remember. It was you have been nailing it with the Games We Playin segment lately. So just today, actually, Lucy and I purchased Outer Worlds and Battlefield Bikini Bottom Rehydrated from our last episode, because you had recommended both of them. So we're going to be playing those in the future. That'll, I'll have played both of those, and I'll mention those on the next podcast, my own thoughts on those.
There you go.
But my experience, I just have one game to mention for this segment, and it pales in comparison. It's a little game called SnowRunner, which I had mentioned in our Game of the Year podcast as a pick that was really cool, and finally gotten around to really diving into it a little bit. And I mean, it's a fantastic game. I mean, you get thrown right in, and it's instinctual. And the whole premise of the game is that you are driving a truck delivering crucial supplies to different towns. It has an area system that's a lot like Far Cry. Like you unlock checkpoints that like unlock a whole area, similar to Breath of the Wild as well. Like a tower kind of a thing. So, but the whole area is open right away, and you drive these iconic American trucks, heavy diesel engines, and full of pollution. The whole game is polluted because you're driving these big, masculine, manly trucks, and you're just driving through mud and snow and water. And I was trying to get through some rough terrain the other day, and I got stuck, and my engine just failed. And so now I got to figure out a way how to get out of that situation. I got to go get a bigger truck and pull that truck out, and then I got to repair it, etc. It's a great game. I'm really enjoying it. So it's really enjoyable. The name of that game is Snow Runner. So a little low key. It's only like what did I pay for it? I think like $29.99 or something like that. So it's on the bottom side. No, more than that, because it was more than Hades, and Hades is $34.99. So I think it might have been $39.99. And still, I mean, while I mentioned it, Hades is still the best bang for your buck you're going to get ever.
Oh, yeah.
So every single one of you needs to get Hades. It's a fantastic, amazing game. But anyway, yeah, SnowRunner.
It's so interesting
really fun game.
that you brought it back up, Jared, because it was tickling the back of my mind the other day, actually, like literally like a week and a half ago, SnowRunner, because a guy who I follow on YouTube mentioned it. His name is ACG, and he does like really good reviews, but he brought up like SnowRunner as a really great game on, I think, Game Pass. And he was like talking about like, bro, I got addicted to this thing. Like,
yeah,
and he's like a JRPG, Outriders, like shooter nut. And now he's over here playing this like weird trucker game. And like, he said he just like all of a sudden lost like a week and a half of his life to this thing and was like streaming it stuff. And in love. And he found like this whole community that was like loving it with him. And it was so funny because I was like, SnowRunner, that sounds so freaking familiar. And then you bring it back up here and I'm like, that's what it was. It was that Jared game. So it's so funny that you actually introduced it to me. And then it was validated by someone else a little later. So
yeah. It's not glamorous, certainly, but no blue-collar work is glamorous, typically. So makes sense. So, Josh, I just had a quick question for you for our default segment. When you meet someone brand new, and maybe you have to work with them in the future, maybe you don't, maybe you meet them at a restaurant, maybe it's a server or a bartender or someone in the industry or someone who's helping you out, or just a chance meeting in a bookstore or coffee shop, something like that. And you get to talking with them. Let's say you've been talking for about 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden they say something and your blood curls a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything obscene, but just like something that like, I don't think I want to keep getting to know this person. And if you've ever had a moment like that, let me ask you, what was that thing? What was that red flag, to put it, that turned you off? And has that happened repeatedly? What are some red flags when you first meet someone that you're like, ooh, I might not want to associate with this person?
Yeah. Well, I say like if you're at to the point where there's 10 minutes of conversation that has happened with me, then we're in a pretty good spot. I'm not like the most outgoing guy in the world. I will kind of like, test the water to see what the temperature is, and if the person responds with short, curt answers with my second question, then I just stop entirely. And I'm bad with first impressions, just in general, just because I always kind of assume the worst of someone. Like on the side of on the sidewalk, walking past them in the store, and then certainly even after a couple questions, I just assume the worst. So like if I got to the point where I'm at a 10-minute length conversation with them, then I'm pretty open at that point. Like you've opened me up in my shell, and I'm willing to kind of accept a lot. But one thing that I know for sure, and this is going to show my traditional side for sure here, but one thing that really like kind of gets under my skin and will definitely kind of shut me up and make me want to not talk to you anymore is if you just like out of the blue, out of nowhere, just sort of like rag on capitalism and like kind of like talking out of your butt a little and just make some offhand comment about that or bring it up in some negative way without any other context. Like, and that's surprisingly, it's happened to me on a couple of occasions. And I just, every time, like, no, like, be a little more educated.
It seems exactly. I was about to say, it seems to be a little bit, when you say it like that, it seems to be someone who seems to be less educated than they should be if they're just ragging on one entire system of government. And that's kind of would be my response as well, but I'm going to use a different example. If someone either loves or hates, and I mean those in extreme terms, Donald Trump, I'm like, ooh, red flag there.
That's a good one.
Because it really shows like a type. It's a really good cultural barometer to kind of determine like where someone's at, whether how closed-minded they are, like how I really don't want to be dealing with a volatile person, and I get nervous if someone really loves Donald Trump. They're like, "Ooh, they might not like me," or if they really hate Donald Trump, like, "Ooh, they might not like me." So, yeah.
No, that's so interesting. I mean, along those lines, I would say also like if you say something that I just read a hot take of on Twitter,
sure,
like, and you're just spouting back that opinion mindlessly, I'm done with you as well. Like, because Twitter's full of hot takes. It's full of like, whatever trending topic of the day, everyone's got an opinion on. Like, someone says something, and then just all these mindless sheep all ascribe to that opinion. And if you just take to that and you don't have a thoughtful take on it, or if you just bring it up out of the blue, which happens, then at that point I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Like, we were having an engaging conversation and you just dumped it down significantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of fits in with the Trump thing, because Trump was certainly that for a lot of his time in office, and now it's other stuff, and it's still Trump sometimes. Sure. But I've had that experience for sure.
Yeah. Just curious. It's funny how we use the political and cultural norms of the day to kind of use a barometer for other people, and people like to deny and say no one should stereotype anyone else. But to be honest, our brains are built to adapt quickly and then streamline process to be as efficient as possible. We are not designed to be thinking consciously very hard all the time. We would run out of energy and die probably before we were all 40 if we did that, if we just thought continuously and nonstop. We are designed to make things efficient, and so that means we stereotype and we generalize and we kind of group people together, and that's our way of making the world tolerable and not too much unknown, or else our anxiety would fly through the roof. And I think to fight those natural stereotypes is really a losing battle, and it's okay to stereotype people as long as you are open-minded to the fact that you could have been wrong about them. You know what I mean? So... And it's interesting that you and I both mentioned, political and cultural hot topics, really, to gauge that. And that is true. That's the cultural language of the day. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah, it kind of made me think about it for a second.
I have another question for you, Jared, along these lines.
Go ahead.
You consider yourself a man of faith, correct?
Yes. So
how do you feel about people who rag on your faith, and not necessarily because it's your faith, like maybe they don't realize what you believe, but like what's your reaction to that? Like if an atheist like just was like, oh well, God's not real, like what's your reaction? How do you feel about that? What do you say back in response to it?
Sure. So I had a great conversation. It was very brief, very less than 30 seconds, but I kind of tongue-tied him a little bit. He had said he believes in karma, and I said, well, I believe in God, and that's like roughly the same thing. I was like, that's my, it's not, obviously.
Yeah, fate.
But I was saying, like,
people will ascribe fate to God.
Exactly. And I was like, you believe in karma, right? And he's like, well, yes, but they're not the same. And I'm like, no, they're not the same. But here's what I mean by that. I was like, I believe, or rather, let's switch it around. You believe that karma is the universe adjusting. So if you push out good vibes, you're going to get good vibes in return. If you push out negative vibes, you're going to get negative vibes in return. And I said, in what science book is that a physical enforced law? Gravity is an enforced law. We don't really know what enforces it. We just know that it's enforced.
It's observable.
Like you jump, you fall. It's observable. Whereas karma is a belief system.
Yeah.
Like, who is enforcing that? And I said, or what is enforcing that? And if I said, if you ask what is enforcing that, and then you just mildly change the question to who is enforcing that, then you come to the conclusion that I've come to, which is that there is a entity who is omnipotent that enforces that karmic justice that you're talking about, which is not anti-biblical. God said, he what's the verse I'm looking for? It's nothing escapes his eye. Essentially, it's like
reap what you sow.
Exactly, you reap what you sow, and the evildoer will be seen, and nothing escapes the eye of the Lord, etc. And I was like, that's the same thing. I just believe that it's God that's enforcing it, and you believe that it's the universe. And he was just like, well, no, but wait. But no, like he actually was legitimately, and I it wasn't like a gotcha moment. It was literally, I didn't think about it. I just responded. I said, I've thought about karma before, and I think we're talking the same language, but you believe that it's the universe, and I believe that it's, God, etc. And so, it was a good little snippet of conversation. And I think we really respected each other after that because we realized, oh, shoot, there's some common ground between the two of us, even though he's agnostic and I'm a believer.
Sure.
And then, two, my other friend, Joe, is an atheist. And he and I have great conversations about faith all the time.
Yeah.
We like to test and challenge each other. So when someone just rags on it, I often assume it's most of the time, 80% or more, is due to the fact that they have dealt with unfavorable people in the faith that they're ragging on.
And there's certainly a lot of those.
Exactly. And a lot of people will be turned away from a specific faith because of people within that faith not doing, not living up to the best ideal of their faith. And I think that the swift and brief answer to that is humility, really. I think believers of all faiths could do a better job espousing what they believe and being on top of that, but sometimes they drop the ball, and that's when you lose people. And fair enough, that happens in life. So everyone's on an individual journey, and it's not your or mine responsibilities to make sure that other people are doing right. It's just our own. But yeah, so that's kind of where I fall. I often assume that like maybe they're closed-minded, but most of the time I think that they've probably just been hurt, and so I try to accommodate that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's a very understanding and thoughtful approach. I definitely have a poorer response typically, and not in like I don't like lash back out, but it's just like sometimes I just don't know what to say, And
I'm not going to lie to you. It's easy for me to speak and make myself sound good. Oftentimes my response in my own head before I'm able to answer is very poor as well. And I just need to remind myself like, hey, this person could have been very hurt. And maybe I can, overcome the distance by being extra good to them. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's good to not be defensive about everything. And people are so defensive.
Yes,
in our culture
very much
today,
so. Very much so. Yeah, great conversation. I love that stuff. So Josh, our pick of the week, today's game that we will be discussing and deciding whether it goes into the infamous and famous Hall of Games is Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Now, Josh, my friend, what made you? Let's go over quickly the reasoning for why we chose this game here, real quick. This was your pick.
Yeah.
Go ahead, lay it out for me.
Jared, I love having you as the casual, and I want to get you as many experiences as I can. And I want to throw you at as many different surfaces as I can and just see how you react. That's the goal here. So, and I've put you through the ringer, my friend. I have gotten to I've stretched you, like you've been in some places you never expected to be. And
that's correct.
And that's Donkey Kong is kind of along those lines. And it's a game that like from the outside looking in, if you know nothing about it, if you don't know anything about the history of retro studios and everything, you think it's a goofy Nintendo game. You don't think twice about it. And it's not. It's Donkey Kong. It's the gorilla that everybody knows and loves, right? He's got the goofy tie and whatnot. Actually, not goofy. I think he's pretty sexy in that tie. Personally, he's got a lot of drip. Donkey Kong does. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
But like,
that's one way to put it.
From the outside and looking into it, like you just don't think twice about it. You pick it up for your kid, and this is not necessarily the most friendly game. And you don't necessarily realize that. And so just, part of this whole process here, Jared, is to see how you react. On top of that, I happen to like the Donkey Kong Country games. So jumping back into it is a plus for me. And the other thing, too, is just, mixing it up. We haven't really done a whole lot of platformers. I think the only true platformer we have covered has been Super Mario Odyssey. So, thinking just along the lines of what's a different genre from other ones that we've covered recently. This one's a little bit more traditional. Let's have a go at it. So that was kind of my reasoning, and I apologize for that.
No,
on some level.
Don't even apologize. So let me ask you briefly, just answer this in one word. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
The chicken.
Okay. Which came first, Donkey Kong or Mario?
They came at the same time, but as far as titles are concerned, Donkey Kong.
That's correct. That's exactly. And I thought that was so interesting when I doing a tiny little bit of reading up here on the game just before the podcast. Donkey Kong was actually released in 1981 and was featured as the villain. Donkey Kong was the villain, and Mario was trying to rescue the princess. Of course, kind of a King Kong kind of a vibe, obviously. And
Quick history,
and
Jared.
Mario.
That game was supposed to be a Popeye game, but they couldn't get the licensing. Yeah, it was supposed to be Popeye versus I don't remember what the big burly dude, the sailor dude is.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that.
And it was supposed to be why am I blanking on these characters' names? The chick with the long arms.
Is it Bruto or something?
Yeah,
Brutus.
Bruno.
Yeah,
I think
like
it's Bruno.
Something.
And then
Bruno.
The chick's name is something with a
Olive, I believe, or something.
olive oil. Yes,
Olive oil. Yeah.
there you go. And the rights didn't come through or something like that, or like they canceled or expired. And so Nintendo, in a last-ditch effort, just kind of rebranded it on their own, kind of pulling from King Kong, yeah. And you got Donkey Kong becoming. They named that Donkey Kong because they thought donkey in English meant stupid, and then Kong, of course, being King Kong. Like, stupid monkey was kind of what they were going for, and he was facing against Jumpman. He was not Mario. So
correct.
He didn't even have the moniker of Mario yet. He was simply Jumpman, and it certainly took the arcade industry by storm. Anyway, sorry.
Sure.
Jumped in there.
No, you're good. No, I that's why I kind of prompted it with that, because it's interesting to me. I was thinking earlier, I was like, as I was enjoying playing this game, because it's an excellent refresher, it's an excellent change of pace from Dark Souls, obviously. I mean, you're talking about a 180 in direction. Bright, colorful, refreshing, everything like that. I was like, I wonder if Donkey Kong, I wonder if this game would have been made if Mario hadn't just dragged Donkey Kong along in his rise to fame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I remember, Donkey Kong has been featured in every Smash Brothers game. He's been featured in every Mario Party game, either as most of the time as a host or a bonus, not really a playable character as much. Although I think he's in a couple of them, he's a playable character. But he's in Smash Bros. He's in Mario Party. He's mentioned. He punches Bowser in the face in a couple of games at times. He's been kind of like Mario's jungle sidekick a number of times. And I was just thinking to myself while playing this game, I was like, would Donkey Kong be the monkey that he is today without the incredible popularity of Mario? And I remember playing Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Color when I was a little kid. Dude, those were the times, man. Those were some good games.
Yeah.
What was your first introduction to Donkey Kong? And also, do you think that this game would be where it is today without the assistance of Mario?
Certainly not, to answer your second question.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's a synergy between the two franchises.
Yeah.
And they've ebbed and flowed back and forth. But Donkey Kong was definitely left by the wayside. Retro kind of came back in and really reinvigorated the original platformer version of Donkey Kong that was birthed by Rare Studios back in the, I think it was the 90s. Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. Which were really striking graphically at the time. And that was something that Retro wanted to really capitalize on with their first game, Donkey Kong Country Returns, which is on the Wii, and then now this one, Tropical Freeze, which was first released on the Wii U and now on the Switch, re-released on the Switch. But to be honest, just to answer your first question, Donkey Kong and I go way back, man. We go way back. Like I played all kinds of DS Donkey Kong games. I played Donkey Kong Jungle Beat on the Wii. I played several Wii Donkey Kong iterations. That's where I got to go back and rediscover some of the old classics too, like Donkey Kong Country, which those games are very difficult. You thought Tropical Freeze was hard, Jared? Just go and try and play those original Donkey Kong Country games. My goodness. But actually, in my history of gaming, Donkey Kong 64, which is to date the only 3D outing of Donkey Kong, was legendary to me as a kid. I have so many fantastic memories of playing that game, and I loved it. People hate it. It's really not aged well, and people despise it to this day. But for me as a kid, I didn't know any better, and man, I fell in love with that series. With the with the different characters. In that one, you've got like Lanky Kong and Tiny Kong, and of course Diddy and Donkey, and they all have different like guns and stuff. But like that was like where I really fell in love with the character and that world as a whole. And then, you know, I just over the years it kept going. I actually watched the Donkey Kong cartoon. Did you know that there was a cartoon, Jared?
No, I did not.
Oh my goodness. Don't look this up on YouTube. It is so cringe. Dear. But
oh man.
I actually remember one night we got it from the library. We got like one of the seasons or whatever. And my mom was like, okay, we'll watch this, you know, over the next week or so. Like, don't worry about it tonight. We're going to go to bed. And I paid attention to where she put it. And then I woke up after everyone went to bed, and I went and grabbed Donkey Kong, and I went and put it on the TV and watched like 10 episodes in the middle of the night. And, and you know, I was a little kid, so like, I thought it was the best thing in the world. But yeah, man, sure. me and the series go way back. And so like I was excited to hear that Retro was going to be picking up the franchise and taking their own approach to it with the country games coming back. And I'm a huge fan of 2D platformers, so it seemed like a marriage, you know, fit for heaven. And so I love these games, and I certainly love Tropical Freeze as well. But yeah, that'd be my history. I don't know if you knew what you were getting into when you asked that question, but
that's exactly what I was hoping for. It just kind of I love to hear, because you have such a rich video game past. I love to incorporate that because I like to hear about it. I had less of a rich video game past, and I think that further, you know, kind of distinguishes you as the more experienced gamer and me as the casual who doesn't know what he's doing.
So is
kind
this
of along
like
for the ride? But
outside of Mario Kart and Smash Bros, is this like your first Donkey Kong introduction as far as the other, like his own games go?
No, so unfortunately I couldn't afford the little bongo drum setup for the GameCube.
Right.
I remember that being very popular with many of my friends when GameCube was the thing in my early teens. And also too, I played the Donkey Kong, I can't remember what the title is, so many years ago, on the Game Boy Color. Just one of the Donkey Kong games, I can't remember. And that was a ton of fun, but I remember it being very difficult. And I remember Dixie like rotating like a helicopter with her long hair, and Diddy having, you know, his own special thing, and Donkey Kong and all that different stuff, and being like having difficulty with that game because like saving in the old days was difficult without a memory card, and like, you know, just like it was treacherous waters there. So no, it wasn't my first introduction, but it was a good refresher. I mean, Donkey Kong is one of my favorite characters in Super Smash Bros. Just to play because he's so spammy and he's fun.
Yeah.
But no, I found myself reminiscing a little bit because like when you think about Donkey Kong and you think about Mario, and for me they're so intertwined. I mean, if you look at you know, Mario is always launching himself down a pipe, right? And Donkey Kong is always launching himself out of a barrel. And so there's iconic things that are similar, but, you know, unique to the series. But like when you look at the Tropical Freeze map and you're jumping from island to island, whereas Mario jumps from world to world, and you look at the map on the ground and you can unlock a secret level by having an alternate ending in one of the levels that you just played. And, you know, it's a little bit of a platformer, right? And although with the Tropical Freeze, you get a lot of the 3D element, which was really beautiful, but we'll get to that. So, you know, the maps are similar. They look similar. And obviously, you know, you got that funky Donkey Kong, you know, monkey vibes and different things like that. No, not my first introduction to the game, but certainly a good refresher. I've really enjoyed it so far. It's been fun, and like I said, a definite change of pace.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, when was the first time you played Tropical Freeze?
I played it for the Wii U. I was one of the fateful few that actually purchased a Wii U. So sure. I played most of the games that were on it, and
only true gamers purchased the Wii U.
Well, suckers purchased the Wii U, that's for sure.
There you go.
But yeah, so I played it there, got it back on the Switch, played through it again. On the Wii U, I'm pretty sure I 100%ed it. So I like to do that with platformers that I really like. I'm a big platformer guy, so this is just like right up my alley. Like this is hitting the sweet spot. And I recognize too that this isn't necessarily going to click with everyone. Like I know that you've mentioned in the past, Jared, you're not the biggest platformer guy.
No, yeah, and part of that is just because I suck. But yeah,
and there's a level of that certainly will take away from your enjoyability of the game.
Sure.
That being said,
and that's
though. Sorry, you had a thought?
No, I was just gonna say that's the whole. We explored that. How hard should a game be when we've talked about Sekiro in the past, when we've talked about Dark Souls, and platformers are not my thing. But I found myself enjoying this game regardless.
Okay.
And I can't wait to get into why that is. But go ahead, finish your thought, and then I wanted to ask you what was your overall impression of the game. Has your impression of the game changed from the Wii U to the Switch? So
Sure.
you can finish your thought and then answer that for me if you could.
My thought was actually going to transition to an overall impression. So
Sure.
we can just jump into that, just kind of give our basic, specifically, we've been talking the history, but specifically for Tropical Freeze, what's our reaction to it? And when I first played through this game, I would have told you, Jared, that this is one of the best platformers ever made. And I think to this day, I'd still say it's one of the best platformers on the Nintendo Switch. You might be able to put it even in second place, maybe third place. Shovel Knight's certainly above it, so Shovel Knight's got to have a place there somewhere. But otherwise, like it's a very good, high quality platformer. If you know anything about platformers, and if you've played a lot of them, this one is going to fulfill everything that you want from it and surprise you and challenge you as well as it goes. But that has kind of changed over the years. I think with playing games over again, that certainly helps you to get another perspective on it. And I'm going to say it, I think that this one, Tropical Freeze, is of the two retro games, it's the less inventive and the less original. So another bit of history, but Retro Studios is one of Nintendo's only American studios. They're based in Texas. They did the Metroid Prime series, those 3D Metroid games on the GameCube and Wii, and they're loved for that. Of course, they got a ton of critical acclaim because of that and made a name for themselves in the industry. And they switched gears hardcore in taking up Donkey Kong. And, at the time, Nintendo was like, we need a group to take Donkey Kong and figure out what we're going to do with him. We've kind of done some hokey, you had the bongo drums, very gimmicky stuff going on with the series, but they hadn't ever really gotten back to the roots of Donkey Kong Country, which were some tough-as-nails platformers with their own personality. And Retro, raised their hand and said, let's do it. We want to do this. And with Returns, which was their first one, of course, Donkey Kong Country Returns, of course, after 20 or so years, they had so many beautiful ideas that were realized in the game. And Tropical Freeze is the follow-up, hones a lot of that, but to be honest, I think Returns is the better game, having played both of them multiple times. And because of that, this one has kind of, and especially playing through it again this time, I think that solidified it a little bit in my mind, and it's dropped down in what I would consider S-tier platformers. And I think Returns edges it out in that way. Nonetheless, Tropical Freeze still a fantastic platformer and a good video game. It's a really good video game. So
yeah, when you suggested it to me, I had never actually heard of Tropical Freeze before.
Sure.
I kind of assumed that Donkey Kong was a little bit on the shelf, just kind of making cameos in Mario games, etc. And I guess that's kind of technically true. I mean, what's been the Donkey Kong game that's come out since the Wii U? Has there been one?
No.
I know. None, right? That's what I'm. Yeah, so I guess my impression was kind of correct, just because Tropical Freeze isn't going to make headlines because it's a re-release, right, for the Switch from the Wii U. So that makes sense. But I was surprised. Like when I picked up this game, I was like, man, I'm really enjoying this. It's fresh, it's new for me, and again, surprised by the difficulty of it too. Now, this is where my casualness comes into it, and we can jump into gameplay a little bit here. There's a Funky Kong character, right? Like Funky Kong, I don't know if he's always been used this way, but he is the casual version of Donkey Kong, which
he's new to the Switch. So he was not not in the original Wii U release.
Well, I am so grateful that he was the Switch, because you're about to hear what I'm about to say, which is I relied on him a lot. I was tired, Josh. I tired from taking, so many deaths in Dark Souls.
Yeah. Yep.
I just wanted something that I could truly, purely enjoy without really any stress at all. And I found myself loving the fact that I could clear an entire island in under an hour with Funky Kong.
Yeah.
And I don't mean 100% it. I just mean clear it, like, beat the boss at the end, etc. And I was pleasantly surprised at the perfect balance for me as a casual playing Funky Kong. Takes a lot of the technicality out of the game. It gives you a double jump, and it gives you a lot of grace with falling on sharp objects. Donkey Kong has one jump, and it's unforgiving. And Funky Kong has 5 hearts, etc. So the gameplay is, different, definitely. And I just found myself able to relax, kick back, have a drink and play my game. And it was really, really refreshing. And I was surprised at the perfect balance between challenge and the map difficulty scaling so nicely. Just a very smooth scale from 1-1 to 1-5. An excellent scaling and difficulty, and then a very pleasantly challenging boss fight. And it breaks away from the typical Mario formula where it's like 3 jumps on the head and they're dead, right? Whereas this game has multiple tiers of difficulty. The bosses change tactics halfway through. Well, a couple times through, actually.
Yes, they're all on 3 stages, essentially, of the same boss, yeah.
Yeah, and a great variety in the boss fights. So the gameplay itself, the simple jump and the grab and the swing and the default controls being, you can hold the grab button with the triggers and then jump from there, and just very fluid. I was honestly very impressed and very pleased with how much I was enjoying myself just with the pure gameplay. Pardon me, of it.
That's good. Yeah,
Josh,
I think
is that what makes it such a high level game in your mind? Is that smoothness of gameplay?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. The just the way that the physics work, the way that the controls, like the actual, like, when you're moving Donkey Kong, he is hefty like he should be. His jumps are different from, he's not Mario, and you can tell that there is some nuance, there is some like strong development skills behind this thing. This is not a cheap platformer. Like, the physics work, I would say they're actually perfect in both the original Returns and this one. They're not what you would expect, but they are actually perfect for what Donkey Kong should be. There's like a slight sliding, that happens when you like turn around. Like, you can't just jump willy-nilly. He's a gorilla. He feels like a gorilla, and so you have to like keep that in mind. And Funky is a fantastic compromise. And that's something that certainly in the Switch version they did that I think is of benefit. And a lot of people made fun of Funky Kong when he was first announced, like when they first said that this is going to be coming to the Switch, and they're like, also brand new Funky mode. And when you boot up the game, it says like, do you want to play with Funky or do you want to play with the classic version? And of course I go for classic. I don't think I've played as Funky at all in any of my playthroughs through this game, but that's because I'm a glutton for punishment and I want to hone that precision of jumps. Like, and Donkey Kong's not easy if he doesn't have, I mean, you mentioned it, like when he's on his own, he's kind of like got one jump, he's very heavy, he'll fall very quickly, and if you're not utilizing the roll, or if you don't have a companion, you're gonna die pretty easily as just Donkey Kong, and it'll punish you for that. And so Funky is this really great alternative for people that are like, hey, I'm a 12-year-old kid. I've never played a platformer in my life, and I got Donkey Kong because I like the character, and this game is kicking my butt. So yeah, let's throw in Funky Kong as like a really great alternative. And I think it's a very graceful alternative as well compared to a lot of Nintendo's other ideas and other games. Like in some of the Mario games, like they'll just give you like an infinite star, or like an infinite leaf, and then you just become like a god. You just run through the level, and you can beat it like that. And it's like, okay, great. Actually, in I think New Super Mario Bros. Wii, they literally just had a version where you could play as Luigi, and it would just play the game for you. You could turn, I don't remember what the mode was called. I'd have to look up what it was called, but you could literally activate a mode where you put the controller down and the computer went through the level for you. And that's kind of, I don't know if I'd say cheap, but it's just not a graceful way of handling it. And Funky is a really great way of just like, okay, yes, we're going to give you more hits. We're going to give you a nice, more of like a floaty character who can make some of those more difficult jumps. And we're not going to just punish you and make this whole game inaccessible to a casual. And so I appreciate that. And that's that implementation. Of course, I didn't use it, but it's there. And I think it's good that it is. And that's something like looking at Sekiro and playing through that game does not have an easy mode. It does not have a casual mode. There is no way. It's inaccessible. It's very inaccessible. And if you have accessibility issues, like if you have kind of like, and I'm not trying to like be cruel or anything, but if you have like some sort of deformity or something that makes it hard for you to play a game, Sekiro is not going to compensate for you. And that kind of sucks. It does. It's a bummer. And if you like, and you know, people online are gonna be like, oh, well, get good, you know? But that's just not necessarily the best answer to everything. And so Nintendo has put into this game an answer. And I appreciate that. And I think personally, I don't think it necessarily takes away from the experience, but I think there's a little bit more of a reward that I get out of these games by playing as just Donkey Kong, you know, and just trying to get that roll jump down just right and paying close attention to how these levels unfold and dying multiple times in order to learn. Like, that's something I enjoy. But if you're not about that, then, you know, this game has options for you, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting, too, is that you're exactly right. The balance between what's, quote-unquote, the casual mode and the classic mode is actually, like... So Funky Kong has a couple pros. Like I mentioned the double jump, right? But he also can breathe underwater, and he can't actually like breathe. He's got a snorkel, so you know it's whatever. But he can quote unquote breathe underwater.
Oh, so he doesn't have like a meter.
Correct.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So he doesn't have a companion either. So the game is simplified. It's not necessarily made easier because you still need precision. Mm-hmm. You still can't jump on top of a character with a spiky helmet. You still can't do that. But what it will allow you to do is hover in the air until they walk past, and then you can drop down and then do the roll, right? But it also, because of the double jump and because of the breath meter, not having a breath meter underwater, it speeds up the game. So you can actually beat the levels quicker with Funky Kong and just kind of speed through and go as fast as you can. And if you wanted to play that way too, you know, it's a clean, quick alternative instead of like, you know, just grinding through trying to get all the puzzle pieces, trying to get all the whatever. And I found that interesting is like instead of making the game too easy, like it's not playing for you, instead it's allowing you a different way of playing, which is almost an entirely different experience. Obviously not, you know, a ton, but significant enough that it feels, you know, uniquely different. And I thought that was cool. I was like, that really strikes the balance between playing classic mode and playing casual mode. And I didn't feel like I was sacrificing. I didn't feel like less of a player. I just felt like I was playing a little different. And that was important. You know, it's not like, oh, massage my ego, tell me I'm amazing. But it was more like, again, you play casual mode and most of the time you're worried it's going to be too easy. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I still found myself like struggling a good bit, especially with bosses and whatever else, even with Funky Kong. It doesn't take away from the game's richness and its difficulty for sure.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And the original game too has helps built into it. You know, you can go visit Funky. Can you visit Funky as Funky? That's a good question.
I don't know.
Because he has like his little shop, right?
Yeah, when you're Funky and you visit a little shop, there's like a bird who has the same glasses that he does, and he sells you stuff.
Okay. Yeah, the bird's there, I think. Well, there's a green bird that'll help you find items. But anyway, you can go to Funky's store in Classic, and I guess in Funky as well, if you're not playing it specifically Funky in that level, and buy helps. So there's like a balloon that'll pull you out of a pit. So you have that one option to try again. And so on and so forth. There's like a heart that'll give you like plus 5 extra hearts. Yeah. Because you're typically limited to 2 hits, right? And so now you have way more, which I remember when I first played through this game and Returns, those things actually, towards the end of the game, were pretty crucial for me. Like now, I've played these games enough, I can pretty much just breeze right through them. And that's pretty much what I did with this run through. And it was a lot of fun, but I'm not struggling as much with it because a lot of it's familiar and I've got a good feel for it. But like, those proved integral. Like the last boss, I know, Jared, you say you didn't get to the final world, but man, that last boss in this game in particular is going to test you and is going to feel long and grueling. And if you don't have those jumps down precisely, you're going to miss your opportunities and go through the whole cycle again. And so having something like a boost of hearts helps a ton. And so it has little things like that built into it, that it's not just throwing you out there and leaving you on your own like Dark Souls. it's trying to help you out in any way that it can.
Yeah. I really, the whole crux of the game is that, tropical freeze, right? Like it's jungle, Donkey Kong's home, and then what's the word I'm looking for? A warmongering penguin.
Yeah, like Vikings and a
Viking
old,
penguins.
What is he? A walrus. Yeah. He's the man. Yeah. The main big bad is a walrus dude.
There you go. So he comes to town and he freezes, these islands that you have to then liberate as well. And, that's the whole premise of it. And then you have to, obviously, he's the final boss, etc. And, it's a silly premise, but like the world design that comes from that, having a half frozen in some places, and then, Donkey Kong's famous too. Well, Mario as well. Nintendo likes to do this. Have underwater levels. Mm-hmm. They have levels that incorporate a lot of fire. Typically you see that in World 8 or 9 with the Mario games, etc. And so, I was really pleased with the way that this game was presented. We talked about gameplay, but the world itself that they presented was also just as refreshing. You mentioned the final boss, obviously the walrus and everything. And I loved the juxtaposition that they had with what would be considered, tropics, the jungle, the this, the that, and I really love the world design, Josh. Is that another thing that stands out to you about this game?
100%. Yeah, and we can spend a whole lot of time talking about world design. Jumping back quickly, just my only note on story is that I appreciate that they mixed up the story for Donkey Kong just a tiny bit. Like he's kind of pushed out of his own home, but like typically Donkey Kong is like chasing someone who stole his bananas. It's like someone's they stole my banana stash. So it's a little different from that. And then this game also too builds into the fact that Returns came before it, which of course, Jared, you wouldn't know, but when you get to the 6th world, you're back to Donkey Kong's island. And the first game, Donkey Kong Country Returns, took place entirely on Donkey Kong Island. And so each of the levels of World 6 in Tropical Freeze are homages to the worlds of the first game. And so they reference it in fantastic ways. It's just a really nice, tying the two games together and what that first game was and a lot of the inventive ideas of the first one. But then in this one, you're going through those areas again, but they're frozen over. And it's just like a whole new dynamic plays out. And to be honest, the last world is by far the best one in this game. Just from sheer cinematics, from level design, from just the perfect balance of difficulty and accessibility, and I absolutely loved it for that. But all of these different islands and the whole world in general is very, very well presented and just well designed. Like there's no other way to put it.
I mean you have tropical freeze, right? So the tropics, and you think about the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, as they cut through, and then you got all the hot, muggy areas in between. You think of jungle, right? You think of Brazil, the Amazon, and there's a level like that. And then you think of the savannah too, with zebras and lions and tigers and bears and all that stuff, etc. Oh my! And it's got a lot of variety, and then it's got some underwater levels. Of course, you think of tropics, you think of eels and squid and octopi, etc. And I was just thrilled every time I jumped to a new island, seeing the theme, seeing the bright colors, seeing the unique world design, seeing the level of the waterfalls incorporated into the map, simple stuff like that. Really, there's a lot of love in games like that. There's a lot of imagination and going wild and stuff. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed every single world. When I play Mario, the world that always bogged me down the most and annoyed me the most, I think of Super Mario Brothers for the Wii, that you could play with your friends. I can't remember, but you could play with Toad and Luigi in a party, like a group, and then if you died, you'd be in a bubble and your friends had to pop you and you'd shake the controller, etc. Tons of fun. I think of that. I think of Super Mario Bros. Deluxe maybe. But anyway, the world that always bothered me so much was the rock world. It just annoyed me. It always just annoyed me. It was such a pain in the butt. Whereas the jungle world with the spiky caterpillars or whatever else, like that was super fun. And World 1's obviously great. And World 2 or 3, which is typically the ice world, was so much fun. The dry desert world's a lot of fun. You know, but there's one or two levels in Mario that I was just like, not a fan. You know, just boring. Let me get through this. Let me go beat Bowser. But with Donkey Kong, just pleasantly surprised. There's not a single world that I disliked. And it reminded me a little bit, you know, because the most recent Donkey Kong game that I played was the DLC add-on for Mario Rabbids.
Sure,
which we talked about, you know, and seeing some of that recreated in Donkey Kong's own home territory and his own version, his own art style, which is, you know, differs slightly. But that bright, vast colors and the depths of the 3D animations and the maps that they set out, I was just blown away that there wasn't a single thing I disliked about this game in presentation. And that's juxtaposed a little bit with a game like, I want to be careful here because I don't want to make a apples to oranges comparison, but like, you know, Axiom Verge, there's levels, but because the art style is like, maybe that's not the best example because there's a decent amount of variety, but like
I know what you
Knight,
mean
for
though.
instance.
Like I couldn't necessarily name any of them. You know, like they all kind of blend together by the end of the Like they stand out within it, but like by the end, there's not like distinct biomes necessarily.
Yes, whereas the variety that comes with Mario games and the variety that comes with this game, Donkey Kong and Tropical Freeze, is, I mean, great. It's fantastic. It's just broad. There's so much thought and creativity. What are the limits? What are the boundaries that we can push this concept of a tropical freeze to? And I was just very pleased with the execution.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Beautiful all the way around.
Yeah,
it reminded me a little bit of Luigi's Mansion too. Like that level of creativity. I was like, this is great. This is a good return for me. That's partially why it was so refreshing. I was like, I feel like I'm back in Luigi's Mansion, tropical version, but that same imagination, that same fun, and that same pizzazz. I really enjoyed it.
In lesser hands, a Donkey Kong game would feel one note. It'd feel kind of generic, but Retro comes in and they take their top tier design studio and just like they take what seems like a very simple premise, a simple world, and they just fully realize it, and they stuff it with everything they can possibly think of, and they try to actually make it feel like a living, breathing world, like you're actually on an adventure through it. And in that way, I think it actually does it better than most Mario games. Aside from maybe, you know, the 3D ones, you know, Odyssey or or Galaxy. Most of the 2D ones, I'd say these Donkey Kong games trump them just in world design for sure. And that just speaks to the fact that this developer said, hey, we're given a series that maybe can be easy, maybe generic, and we're not going to do this like lackadaisically. We're not going to just go in with a lukewarm attitude and you know, half booty cheek it. We're going to do our best.
Yeah, exactly.
And it pays off in the design and in the world. What was your favorite? So not talking levels necessarily, but what was your favorite like favorite island in general and that theme?
Yeah. The savannah, the burning savannah. That was so much fun. I just was like, that's brilliant. That's so brilliant. The way they incorporated like zebras and giraffes and like still needing Funky Kong or Donkey Kong, whoever, to like grab onto a pole to be able to jump back and forth, and like the brush fires being a big part of a lot of those levels. Like I really enjoyed that. I thought that was so creative. Those are a lot of ideas that I had never thought of before that you know, when you think of a Mario game, you've just kind of got this idea. It's going to be zany, wacky, funky, and it's going to be all these things. With the Donkey Kong, you have less of an expectation because the history goes back further. The recent history is more sparse. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, you know, and two, like, if I could just make a comment, like, my favorite was the Savannah, but, like, I say that because I was surprised by how much I liked it. And the reason I was so surprised was because this is what happens when you take, like, kind of a B-tier premise. Well, I should say A-tier. Let's assume Mario's the S-tier of Nintendo, right? Mario's the S-tier, and then underneath it, you got Luigi's Mansion. Underneath it, you got Donkey Kong. Underneath it, you have Bowser's Fury. Toad, what's the word?
Captain Toad?
The Toad, Captain Toad, that's what I was trying to say. Underneath it, you have these like so-so ideas. And with this Donkey Kong game, I felt like the creativity and the imagination with both, and the excellence with both gameplay was what happens when you give someone extraordinary something generic. And I thought it was excellent. How about you, Josh? Tell me what your favorite, did you prefer to play with Dixie or Diddy or the old Kong or the Grumpy Kong? Or did you play?
We're kind of jumping back and forth between gameplay and world here, which is fine. We can kind of jump back and forth, but the characters are definitely a little bit more on the gameplay side of things. Just to speak to that real quick, I think this is a Dixie game. Like,
sure.
Once you, and I know you played mostly as Funky, so like maybe you didn't experience this as much, but once you like realize how crucial Dixie's little hair flip up is, because it's essentially a second jump, which Donkey Kong does not have.
Right.
And in returns, you only have Diddy Kong. You don't have the other two. So you're stuck with Diddy, which is used perfectly well, and he's certainly helpful because he adds basically an extra little float. So if you jump and slightly misjudge where that platform was, you can hold Diddy and he'll like keep you floating in the air a little bit. But Dixie takes that a step further because her hair flips you up. So if you miss a platform, you can actually just jump back up to it. Whereas if you miss it with Diddy, you're going to float underneath it and then die. So because of that, Dixie, I think, is by far the most valuable. Like anytime I came across a barrel in a game or in a level, I would just wait until it got to the Dixie identifier and then I chuck it and open up. So like I played 99% of this game with Dixie, except for when it forced me to use Diddy, because every now and then they'll just assign one of them to that level. And then I would play Cranky whenever I needed to, because he hops on spikes. He's got a Scrooge McDuck from the DuckTales game from the SNES, where he kind of like jump on their cane, get a slightly higher jump. He has, which I guess like in an attempt to make him different from the other two, works fine. But when it comes down to it, practically Dixie Kong is the clear choice. So
I did play as both. I played, and by that I mean I played both Funky and Donkey Kong. So I did play each world. I played a little bit of both, actually.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd beat a level with Donkey Kong. Sometimes I'd beat one with Funky. But I enjoyed the fact that if a level was kicking my butt, I could switch over to Funky, which by the end of the game felt more natural to me because of that double jump. But anyway, no, I'd certainly agree with you. I found Diddy to be a little redundant, especially like if I was having trouble with something, I was like, I'd rather not play with Diddy. I'd rather just play Funky because his double jump makes Diddy's floating, and also Funky floats on his surfboard.
Certainly I could see how Funky would make Diddy obsolete.
Yeah, so that to me was something, that was my mindset on it. So I totally agree with you. Dixie would be the best. I didn't really figure out how the best way to use Grumpy Kong was, just because his is a little bit more unique. It's got a couple different uses. It's not so simple. So I didn't really get the technique for him down, but I did play as both, and I did agree with you with that. Dixie is for sure the better character there.
Well, and Cranky too, like you called him Grumpy, but I just want to clarify his name is Cranky.
Sorry, pardon.
But he's requires a little bit more nuance because you have to jump and then hold A again for his little cane to pop out underneath you. So you have to like actually be trying. Like with the other two, you can kind of like make a mistake and like, oh, whoops, and kind of like help yourself out. But with him, you have to be like thinking through it. And I appreciate that they actually build into these levels like unique character secrets, especially where like you cannot find the secret entrance or the secret exit and get to the extra level on the map unless you have Cranky Kong. So like they use the characters in that way, like they use their move sets in crucial ways, which I appreciate. But then when it comes down to it, just practically Dixie is the way to go, especially when it comes to underwater too. And I hate underwater. Oh my goodness. I hate any video game that does underwater. And unfortunately, Donkey Kong is no exception. But like Dixie is so vital when it comes to those underwater levels. I don't know how funky
Yeah.
he controls. I mean, obviously you can just breathe continually, but like Dixie makes it so much more smooth. And
Yeah.
she's actually like, you need her to find a lot of secrets in underwater levels. So she just, to me, seemed like very obvious, like very obviously the correct choice of the three.
Yeah.
So it really, to be honest, you could have gotten rid of the other two and this game would have
Sure.
been just the same for me.
Yeah.
So talking about world again, just going back to that, my favorite world, like island, would have to go to the last one, Donkey Kong Island. But I do want to give a shout out to the second one, which is like it was like a fall aesthetic. There's like mountains,
Yeah.
there's like owl shaped mountains.
Yeah, falling leaves. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it looks like all the trees are turning brown, and they just do like a really cool, like that's just a unique vibe. Like games don't pull that as a biome. Like
It reminded
talking about
me of
Mario,
the
you don't see that.
Right. It reminded me. The only other place the place that comes to mind when I think of that is the maple tree map in Mario Kart.
Absolutely, no, you're not wrong.
And I don't even know where that comes from. I don't know if that's a throwback. It's just a bonus level design. I don't think I've ever seen that in a Mario game. But yeah, no, that's a beautiful level. You're not wrong.
It is from Galaxy. I can
Oh,
confirm.
okay.
Because Galaxy has a couple of honeybee levels where.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're totally right.
And one of them is like an autumn themed. So yeah, that's where that comes from.
Throwback right there.
Yeah. What did you think? So just wrapping up gameplay here, Jared, and we can talk a little bit more world design. What did you think of the feel, like the way the game controlled? I know we talked about it a little bit, but like, did you find it cruel at times? Like, did you find it hard to adjust to?
Hard to adjust to, yes, but not cruel. Every time I died, I was like, that's fair. That's fair. I messed up. I missed the platform. I did this wrong. I jumped too early. I jumped too late.
And
I thought
that's
it was
something
fair.
this game does. Is it is like, you screwed that up. It doesn't feel necessarily. I mean, in some of the like the rocket levels, it can kind of feel like trial and error. But for the most part, you kind of know. Yep, I moved the stick a little too far in that direction.
Yeah, and I love the variety between like just you're playing as your character, and then you're getting through the level, and then other levels are pure. You have to kind of play a what's Subway Sam? What's the Subway Surfer kind of a version almost? You're jumping between riding mine cart tracks or a rocket barrel or something like that. A variety, mix it up really good, and I really enjoyed that mix up there too. But no, every single time I died, bar none, I thought, no, that was fair. It's a platformer.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss my timing. I'm going to get wrong. I'm going to get smacked or something. And every single time I was like, no, that's fair. I broke the physics, or I tried to break a rule here and it didn't let me. So no, I thought the game was incredibly fair.
Yeah, it sticks to those rules really well. And that's another thing like that I think is great about this game, is that it gives you a very basic move set. Donkey Kong can grab and he can roll and he can ground pound. And then in each level, they kind of like play with that in little ways. So like he'll grip onto vines and you can kind of like grip that, or you can like in the safari level where it catches on fire, they introduce little like water berries and you can grip the water berries and put out fires throughout the level and little things like that. And then a couple of the enemies you have to like ground pound before you can roll into them. And so it's simple, but they utilize it in a lot of interesting ways. And I appreciate that. And again, it requires precision, but it rewards that as well. Another quick thought about gameplay, Jared. What did you think of just the exploration, the secrets that are built into this, and the collectibles that you have to find? Did you find that rewarding?
Yeah, I did, and I also got a little frustrated too. Because I would like go through and I'm like, dang, I must have got all them puzzle pieces right, and then I get to the end of the level, I'm like missing one or two. I was like, what? I explored that whole level from bottom to top.
Yes.
There's no way I missed, but I did, sure enough. And I found that very rewarding. I again, clever use of background against false walls, of hidden behind things, little indicators here and there that if you're paying attention, you'll see them. If you're not at the right angle, or if you're heading the wrong direction, and there's the map will take up 120% of your screen. So if you're too far to one side, you'll miss the secret entrance on the other side of the screen. It's a little, you know what I mean? Like it's a little too zoomed in, so you got to be careful, or else you'll miss the left tap. Right, things like that.
Yeah, you have to be very observant, and it rewards that, which is great. Like that's something I think good video games do, is it rewards people who are actually thinking while they're playing. And this does that incredibly well.
That's why I do want to make a little. It's hard to compare them because they're two totally different types of games. But like for instance, without the online play of Dark Souls, you are going to walk past the bonfire. Pardon me. You're going to walk past the bonfire that's just outside the crest of Artorias that goes in the garden, and you're going to go to the Moonlight Butterfly without having that second bonfire between Andre the Blacksmith and the Moonlight Butterfly, which is behind that hidden wall, right? You're going to miss it because it doesn't occur to you to roll through walls. Like it doesn't tutorial that for you. You're used to fog walls and things that you can't roll through and hard objects. This game, if you see something suspicious, there is guaranteed to be something behind an invisible wall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not trolling you. Like it is hidden. And if you see something that's a little indicator, like something's weird there, you're going to be rewarded. And I think that's probably what you meant. But like I just remember being really frustrated that I felt like I had to roll against every wall in the map of Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Because who knows where a hidden wall could be. Whereas Donkey Kong, it's excellently laid out. Like, oh, there's a little banana here. I need to follow that. There is something there. It's not just trolling me. And that was really refreshing. Coming from Dark Souls to this game, it's just so cohesive of a package, the exploration within the confines of a 2D platformer, single direction game, not 3D. It's excellent. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, and the puzzle pieces are honestly kind of for the hardcore,
Yes,
and they only. I say they only, but it is cool if you like the game. But they give you concept art and music, so you're not getting anything substantial from it. But there are other secrets. You can find secret exits that will take you to a whole new level and a whole new, inventive idea. And that's the other thing about levels about this game is that each one is its own. You have the island, right? That's a theme, but then each level has just this really awesome premise that they bring to the top of its potential. And so it rewards exploration that way. And the level of secret hunting is Super Mario World levels for me. Star World in the SNES Super Mario game is so cool to find, and Donkey Kong has that. It actually gives you that same feeling. And if you're not all about the puzzle pieces and collecting all 9 of them that are really ridiculously hidden in some of these levels, you've got the Kong letters, which are going to naturally come across your path, and they require just a little bit of precision, kind of going out of the way. But you're rewarded with that as well. And so it's got on the casual side of things and on the hardcore side of things, and kind of appeases everyone in that way. And I really appreciate that. And then the other thing that I wanted to say about Secrets is that it's rewarding your curiosity, but it also rewards you for thinking against your instincts. There's a lot of times, certainly in the minecart levels, where you are instinctively going to jump, but the level basically is telling you, it's telegraphing to you to jump, and then when you don't do it, it rewards you with a secret. Yes, and it's you went against your instincts. Very good. Here's a puzzle piece.
Yes.
And and I really appreciate that because it mixes things up in some really fun ways. And so the secrets in this game are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things with Mario games, and we made this gripe with Mario and Rabbids game. It's you explore the edges of this really kind of hard, easy to get lost in, hard to grasp a map, and you're rewarded with concept art. That's kind of lame. And Donkey Kong, it kind of falls into that, and it's more for if you want to do that, it's because you're a completionist. It's not because you're in it for the reward. It's because you like that percentage sign next to that profile. You know what I mean? That's why you're doing it. That's what your motivation is, which is
along those lines. It's all optional, right?
Right.
But it's going to reward you. And on top of that, it's actually fun to do. When you're that's a secret wall over there, and then you figure out how to jump up to it, you're oh yeah, I was right. And even though you don't care so much about what that puzzle piece entails, you still feel good and you had a good time getting it. Whereas I think in Mario plus Rabbids, like you have to solve some really annoying puzzle, and then you get the thing. And you're like, all right, whatever.
Right.
So it's slightly different in that way, and I appreciate that as well.
It's dopamine with extra steps.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I did enjoy that, and you made a good point that I would just like to echo is that the difficulty in completing each level is tiered. So you have the letters, which are fairly easy to get, but they also take a little bit of skill and precision, like you mentioned. Then there's the puzzle pieces, and then there's additionally the secret entrances and exits that allow you to go to different levels. So you're exactly right. It's got all kinds of ways to 100% the game, and it's really rewarding.
Oh, yeah, and if you want to 100% this game, man, oh my goodness. Jared, did you try any of the secret temple levels in each world?
Secret temple levels? What do you mean?
So if you get all the Kong letters in every level in a world, then you unlock a secret temple that's on the map.
No, because I never did that. There was always like one level that I was missing, like an O or a G, and you know what I mean?
Like once you start to really...
Kong, yeah.
Once you start to really try to 100% this game, it just rewards you more and more for going for that 100%. But at the same time, it's punishing you because that's where it's like, man versus mouse. Like it knows that the people that are going to try to 100% it are the hardcore. So it rewards the hardcore with more pain.
Yeah.
It's like a good teacher. Like a good teacher rewards a smart student with an even more difficult question. And it does that with these temple levels. And they are some of the most like intense, grueling, sweaty, heartbreaking platforming levels you will ever play in a video game. And each of them, even back in World 1, like the World 1 Secret Temple will wipe the floor with you and you will die 30 to 100 times. And it is just like brutal, but it's for those people who want that level of brutality. And it's just, it's post-game content. It's a part of the game that's like, okay, yeah, if you want that, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's here for those that actually do want to achieve that. And then after that, if you defeat all of the secret temple levels, then it unlocks World 7, which has 3 of the most cruel and like most sadistic. I said sadistic, but sadistic. I'm having a hard time saying this word. It sucks. It's painful and it loves pain, right? So that's the concept I'm trying to go for here. But like those levels are, man, oh my goodness, the World 7 levels. But it's all there is what I'm trying to say. Like it's going to reward you over and over if that's what you want. And if you don't want that, great, it's optional. If you just want to have a little bit of fun with this, you got Funky Kong, you've got the shop. Blaze through these levels, get to the end, defeat that big bad, and have a good time with it along the way. But if you want to go that extra mile, it's all there for you to attack, and I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. So, Josh, do you have any major gripes with the game?
I say like one thing that really annoys me. So I do have a few things listed here, but one of the things that like just like personally annoys me is that it's pretty much absolutely impossible to get all of the collectibles on your first run, no matter how thorough you are, because they're just that well hidden. So you will inevitably have to play through a level again, and certainly with secret exits, you'll get to the point and you'll find the path to get to the secret exit, but lo and behold, you need Dixie Kong. And you don't have Dixie Kong with you. And so you're like, oh. So you have to go all the way out of the level, play through the whole thing again. Hopefully you don't lose Dixie Kong along the way. And then you can get that secret exit or whatever. So that's kind of a gripe. And perfect example was actually the first level in the game. I like booted this game back up. It's been a couple years. And I was like, let's go. We're playing Tropical Freeze again. And I was like, I'm going to be thorough. I'm going to collect all the puzzle pieces. And I played through the first level. And I got like 6 out of the 7 puzzle pieces. And I was like, what? I was as thorough as I possibly could have been. There is no way I missed a puzzle piece, Yeah. And so that's kind of annoying. At the same time, it's also cool, I guess. But that's certainly a gripe. Did you have any specific gripes before I get into the rest of these?
Yeah, two. And one was exactly that. It's like I felt like even in World 1, I was like I can't 100% a level, like not even the first level. Like you're telling me I seriously missed a puzzle piece at the first level?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So that was a little annoying. It's like I can't get the Kong and the puzzle pieces, or I'm missing something or whatever else. And that was, I didn't quite enjoy that. And the other thing was, I'm going to bring it up as a big point, but like I don't I hate to say this because because value is subjective, but I just didn't feel like this was a $60 game.
Mm.
You know, it's $59.99, and it's a Donkey Kong, platformer, and Donkey Kong's not Mario. Like, if this was even just $10 less, if it was $49.99, I would not be bringing this up. But I just don't feel like it's good, yes, but it's not that iconic. Like, I mean, it's iconic, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not the flagship of Nintendo. I feel like there needs to be more tier. Like, if you're gonna sell me a Mario game for $59.99, you should be selling me a Donkey Kong game for 55 or 49 or 39. Or like Luigi's Mansion should have been 49. It shouldn't have been 59.99. And I get maybe that's picking apples or what's the word? Being nitpicky. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know where I got picking apples from. But like being nitpicky when it should be. But I just felt like I was like, I like the game. I'm enjoying it. It's a great respite from Dark Souls. I'm not a platformer person myself. I just feel like you're not being humble enough if you really believe that this game is worth $60.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be down to $49.99. Is really like max where I'd be willing to pay it. Is that a dumb gripe, Josh? You can tell me if that's a dumb gripe. I don't know.
I think it's not. I don't know. It's not a gripe that's like realistic with Nintendo, because their Kirby Star Allies game is $60.
Exactly.
And
so I know
ARMS
it's a Nintendo problem.
is $60. And Splatoon is $60. And compared to all of those Nintendo games, Donkey Kong is way more valuable and way like more of a polished experience and has a lot more to offer. And certainly if you're a hardcore person like me and you want to 100% it, it's got all kinds of value that's in this game that makes it justify that $60 price tag. So it's kind of a Nintendo problem. Like, and it's certainly because this is an old game. If this wasn't Nintendo, this game would be $15 on a sale.
Right.
But it's Nintendo. Right. And so because of that, like, I feel like that gripe is, like you said, like Luigi's Mansion, $60. Mario Odyssey, $60 feels like a $60 game, but totally there are very, and Breath of the Wild, feels like a $60 game, but there are very few Nintendo games that feel that way, but they keep that price tag on there because they're of the mind of, hey, we're artists, this is our art, this is what we think it's worth, we're not going to go against that. And
yes. Yeah.
And so Donkey Kong, despite the fact that it was like a 2013, 2014 game, is still 60, is just a Nintendo thing, not necessarily a bash against this game specifically.
And I'm so glad you say that. But when I see Hades sitting on the shelf, literally next to Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, and Hades is $34.99, and I know in my head that's Supergiant, knowing that they're the underdog and they just want to make this game accessible to everyone and make a little bit of profit here and just pay their team members well and give them all bonuses at the end of the year. And I hope they all get paid a heck of a lot of money. And then I see Donkey Kong next to it. And I'm like, I've never even heard of this game. But because it's Nintendo, it's 50. You see what I'm saying? So I can't help but think that.
Yeah,
and
in a perfect world,
I hate
man.
Thinking, yes,
Unfortunately,
exactly.
we live in this one.
Well, not even in a perfect world, but in my world, because it's subjective and I'm not a platformer. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I said, like, is that even a legitimate gripe? Because it's very subjective to me, and I don't want to. It's disrespectful. If the creators of this game were to hear me say that and they were Japanese, they'd be very dishonored, right? Like they'd be like, "Who is this punk? How dare he disrespect our art?" And that would be fair. That would be a fair criticism.
Yeah.
But I just can't help but feeling like for someone who doesn't love platformers, and a game that's not a 3D Mario World game, which is the flagship brand of Nintendo right now, I just don't want to. I just don't want to shell out that much. I just don't feel like, like it should be in the Hades range. It should be. It's not even as good as Hades in my mind. So it's like, like It is all subjective. I just felt like I should mention that if you don't love platformers, that would just be my only real gripe. It's a beautiful game all around. The physics are great. I don't really have a ton of platformer experience to like compare it to, but I do love the variety, and I love that it's got its own imagination, etc. We've covered all the bases. That's really just my biggest gripe is like I just don't feel like as someone who wants to play more casual that a platformer game that's a B tier Nintendo character should be that much money. I'm not poor. I have adult money. I don't know if you've seen that TikTok trend, adult money, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a money thing. It's more of a what's this worth to me?
Yeah,
and
no,
just didn't feel like
inherent value for sure.
Anyway, that's a dumb argument. I feel dumb breathing.
Well, what
other
other gripes do you have, Jared? Just to get through your list, because I've got a list here that we can knock out.
Just those two. I really felt like the game was super fair. I really enjoyed all of it. So let's hear yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so a couple of quick preferences that aren't necessarily fair gripes, but I do wish that there were more control options. And this might have just been the issue coming out of actually playing so many Dark Souls games. But after playing so much Souls, it felt very unnatural to use the Y button on my controller because I only hit that would be square on a PlayStation controller, and I only hit that part of the controller when I was using a crucial item. Square is to heal, and so like using it all the time in Donkey Kong just didn't feel right. And on top of that, I wanted to just reassign. Like that was my thing. Is like just give me the option to reassign some of these moves to other buttons, and it just doesn't give you that option. Like I wanted to use A as a roll button because I had played 4 freaking From Software games, and that's always how you roll is A. You roll out of the way. So I was like, okay, let me do that, and then I'll have B as my jump, but it doesn't give you that option. It's B, A, that's it. I think you can swap it to where it's like Y, A, and X, B, or Y, B, and X, A, or whatever. But
something like that, yeah.
But I just wanted the option, and it's not there. Time attack, which is like a part of like once you beat the level, you can go back and do like a run through basically and try and beat it within a limited amount of time. Seemed very superfluous to me and definitely annoying to someone who likes to 100% these sorts of games because I was like, ugh. Like all I want to do is do the collectathon side of things. I want to get all the cool secrets. I don't want to be forced to hone the precise jumps to make this arbitrary limit of time.
This isn't Cuphead, okay?
Yeah, and even then, like Cuphead doesn't necessarily have time attack unless you're incredibly insane. But like, so I hated myself because playing through it and trying to 100%, it's like I had all the Kong pieces, I had all the puzzle pieces, but I haven't done time attack yet, and that's like one of the little badges is there, and it's not filled out, and so like that was annoying too. As far as ones that I think are pretty legitimate gripes, I know for me, it was very easy to rack up lives to the point that they were completely pointless and arbitrary. I had like 99 balloons by World 1-5, like very easily. It was like way too many, way too quick. And same goes for banana coins. The coins, so like you got like the regular bananas, right? Which have like a very, just side note, a very satisfying like click to them.
Yes.
When you collect them. And I love that. Like I appreciate games that go out of their way to make those little tiny pieces of, I guess you could call it ASMR or whatever.
FX, yeah, absolutely.
Like obviously Mario has his coin boing, and then like Sonic has his coins, and they sound a little different. But the bananas sound great, and they feel great to grab. And the banana coins are like supposed to be like the better banana, and there's way too many of them. And they never feel like whenever I like complete like a little tiny puzzle or like collect all the bananas in an area and it rewards me a banana coin, I'm like, whatever. Like completely worthless in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
it's a puzzle piece or nothing.
And to be honest, Jared, I don't know. So we talked a little bit about levels, and maybe we can talk a little bit more specific here, but I don't know how you felt about these, but I do not love, and quite honestly, felt very annoyed anytime it was a rocket barrel level. Mm-hmm. They're basically Flappy Bird. If you've ever played Flappy Bird on your phone, you hold and you go up, and then you let go of it and you drop down. And I appreciate that they're trying to mix things up, and those tended to be very cinematic levels as well. Yes, but oftentimes it was like a slight problem where I died and then I'd have to replay a big long part again, and I was annoyed by it. I just don't love those levels. And to be honest, anytime they popped up, I was ready to get past them. And certainly as a completionist too, those levels, they suck. Trying to get all the con letters, trying to get all the puzzles.
Yes. Because you feel like you have to sacrifice a life and return to the checkpoint just to get the Kong letter.
Yeah.
Like it's not, yeah, exactly. No, I would agree with that. All right, keep going.
My last gripe is just that we're never going to get a sequel to this game.
Yeah.
I just want more. I love Retro Studios. They've been working on something. They were supposed to be working on something else since they released this on the Switch, since they ported it. Right. And we don't know what that was. They got moved over to Metroid Prime 4. And so supposedly they've been working on that for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But we're guaranteed, essentially at this point, to not get another one of these. The first returns sold 6.5 million copies. So it was a decent hit. But this one, to date, has only sold a little over 4 million. And when it was first released, it only sold like 2 million. So it's had a good buff being on the Switch, but it's obviously started to dwindle in its value. And so I doubt we'll ever get another one. And so this being the last one, in my mind, is a hit against it because I think there's so much more that they could have done. And I like I said at the start of this, I think that the first one's a little bit more inventive and a little bit more original and stands the test of time a little better. And I wish they had been able to capitalize with a third. But again, a little bit of a personal gripe there, but nonetheless.
Yeah, or maybe something along the lines of like the Country series, something similar, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm with you.
Which is what it is, companies move on. So I'll have to suck it up, but it is a sad thing indeed. Last question here, Jared. We talked about, of course, the design of the world and how great it is, but what did you think about like the 3D mixing up of the levels and the way that they just like were very dynamic in how they unfolded?
So I loved the cinematic parts of it. I loved areas collapsing away that you then had to like incorporate into your run through. I loved all of that. The cinematics of this, since you use that word, I'll use it again, are excellent, especially in those the rocket barrel and the minecart levels, and some different camera angling too. There's a part where in I think World 4, where you go through and the camera comes from behind you, and it really does feel like Subway Surfer briefly. And I enjoyed that stuff. It mixed it up. I enjoyed that. I love the cinematics, everything. Playing with lights and darks and all the different stuff. So I did really enjoy that.
I'd say the reason that I even ask is I think like the dynamic levels are the star of the show here. Like they are where this game comes to life. And so I just wanted to give them a shout out, I guess.
I also felt too like the backgrounds of the game, since we're talking about 3D, just came to life a lot.
Yeah.
What was going on in the background was really interesting. I actually wish that they had done more. You know how you land on the launch pad in World 1 and you smack it, and like in the background the world quakes, right? As you break ships and stuff. I wish that had been way more common throughout. That's a little gripe that I can mention now that I think of it. I wanted more and more and more of that Donkey Kong strength all throughout. But
I think it's so funny just thinking about like the strength. Of course, he's a gorilla, and so like he's affecting all of these things. But like, I think it's so funny just based on the design, like the fact that he's kind of tiny compared to a lot of these like ginormous, horrifying creatures.
Yes.
Like, an owl is about the same size as Donkey Kong, and you're like, holy crap, that is a 6'5" owl right there. Like, what in the world? Yes. Kind of horrific. Yes.
And I did too, I forgot to mention earlier, I did love that instead of like Mario has his star where he flips and jumps and is invincible. I love the rhino. That's such a cool thing. It's so random, but I love it when I get rhino time in the worlds. That's so much fun to me.
Yeah, rhino
that's so much more
fun.
Yeah, so much more fun than the star. You know what I mean? Like in comparison. So it's good stuff. But yeah.
Did
Josh,
you play co-op at all, Jared? Just a quick question.
No, didn't get a chance. Was it worth it? Is it good?
It's good. Okay, so this one's definitely like that sweet spot between New Super Mario Bros. Where there's 4 people and it's just utter chaos and you can't get anything done.
Yes.
And kind of like you're working together. At the same time, though, this game is really hard. So if you have someone that you're playing with who's not that great, there's going to be a lot of lives lost. So, but it's a nice sweet spot, and it's fun because you can kind of like, obviously, if you're Donkey Kong, you have to kind of compensate for the fact that you don't have all the extra abilities, but the person who is the co-op player gets to play as the person with extra abilities, and so they can kind of like get through a little bit easier, and then you can kind of grab onto them, and so it gets a little easier that way. So I thought it was pretty good. It's a good intersection between like fun, helpful, and horrible mess ups. So I appreciated that.
Well, I don't really have any other notes for this game. I have to come clean and admit, yes, I did not finish the game. I didn't quite get it in, but I enjoyed every second of it. And it wasn't a grind at all. It was enjoyable for me to sit down and play it. It's just that I was busy. And two, Josh, I really do have to refer to your background on a lot of these decisions that we make for the whether a game should go into the Hall of Games. But comparing this game to other platformers, I'll just ask straight out, do you feel like this game should go into the Hall of Games in its genre, like platformers, etc.? Do you feel like it should be up there in our Hall of Games?
Jared, I think that this game is well made. I mean, that's obvious. And there's a lot of ingenuity that's gone into it. But I think it suffers from returning to the well one extra time after returns. And they introduce a lot of cool elements. They try to mix up a lot of the themes. They capitalize on some of that 3D background dynamics that are going on. But to be honest, especially after this is I think it's my fourth playthrough, I think that this game really... It doesn't strike its own mark next to some of the other greats in this franchise. I think it does it's a really great job, but I think that a lot of what we're seeing here and a lot of the praises that we have were done before by the original. And because of that, this one doesn't necessarily introduce a whole lot that's brand new. And I know that that's heresy to a lot of people. I know that a lot of people in the platformer genre are going to cry foul and say that I'm cutting this one short because it has so many rewards built into it for people who are into that sort of game. But I really do think that this one does unfortunately fall a little bit short here, and that's sad for me to say, but I don't think that it should be in our Hall of Games.
Yeah, and I'm of the same opinion. I do obviously come from a less intimate background with the series, with Nintendo itself, and with games in general and platformers. But what I will say is that, like, not having a game in the Hall of Games, again, I've said this before, it does not take away from a game being well done. What we're simply saying is that we don't believe that it's greatness incarnate in a game. And so I actually completely agree with you. I agree with that decision. I don't think it should go into the Hall of Games. It's a good game, very well done. Totally agree with everything good you said about it. But again, I don't think it's befitting of greatness. It's just enjoyable, and there's nothing wrong with that. Certainly an excellent game.
No, and they try to make the best of what they're given. They really pack this game with everything that a Donkey Kong game, a 2D Donkey Kong game could be packed with. Crisp visuals, animations are fantastic across the board. The music is pretty good. It's not really amazing. There's no head boppers or anything. The of course actual gameplay is precise, and I love that. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't strike its own original path, and because of that, I think it doesn't make it. But
totally agree.
To wrap this up here. Of course, it's not in the Hall of Games, but just to give a positive note here, Jared, what was your favorite boss? That was one question I was going to ask that we didn't get to talk about.
Yeah, I liked I thought most of them were fairly tedious.
They're hard,
They're difficult. They are hard, no matter who you play with. But I did like the 3 baboons. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just a lot of moving parts, and that was probably my favorite. That was a lot of fun. So
Okay, yeah. Shout out to the baboons.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I love how they come back after they're dead and like their ghosts help their buddies.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny and it was goofy. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Final decision, folks. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, while a good game, does not make it into the Hall of Games. So, it is what it is. You make that choice. If you're a platformer fan, you'd probably really enjoy that. And play it for yourself. Let us know what you think. Give us an email. Be sure to tell a friend about the podcast. Drop us a 5-star review. And check out our past episodes for more Backlog in-depth conversations. We like to go long and strong and really talk about these games in depth as much as we can. So thanks for hanging with us, guys. Josh, any last notes?
No, yeah, just if you're a platformer guy, pick up this game. It'll reward you. If you're not, I don't know if I can make the recommendation, but otherwise, until next time, and we haven't decided what we're going to be talking about, but we'll have a conversation here and surprise you guys. But until next time, of course, this is the Video Game Bard. And Jared, I appreciate you jumping in and hosting again for this episode. Did a great job. Just want to give
of course, my friend,
shout out.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Quick shout out to my good friend Jared. Jared, you just got a sultry, beautiful voice, and so I appreciate it every time I hear it. But
stop.
Otherwise, I think this is us signing off. Have a good one.